We're still within the remit of Parliament, and there's always public sittings of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, and vividly brings into sharp focus the way contracts are awarded and whether they are duly awarded based on whatever tenets of the public procurement law there are. And the concern has always been that sole sourcing has become a phenomenon, especially over the last 6 or let's say 4 to 6 years. Okay, we know the rationale for the Public Procurement Act. We know why we have the various processes within the law and why we need to perhaps use sole sourcing and according to the law when it's necessary, etc. What have been the disagreements your side of the House have had? Indeed, the entire Parliament.
Well, not necessarily one side disagreeing with anything.
Okay, let me take that out.
Yeah.
Yes, they have been worried about.
Yeah, they have come across
and
all these
actually
things.
Even some NGOs have been, or
yes.
let's say,
and if
civil society organizations.
The Public Procurement Authority is required to submit annual reports to Parliament. The reports are behind time, about 2 or 3 years. But if you look at their recent annual reports, what strikes you? If you pick, let's say, 2011, probably 2012, what strikes you is the fact that you have several huge projects under sole sourcing. Some of them maybe under PPP. If you remember, this whole GIDA business came up along because of PPP and sole sourcing. And there are guidelines, there are rules for sole sourcing. But where we try to muzzle what is in place to more or less have an easier way of doing things, there's a problem. Let me give you an example. In 2009, 2010, when the NDC government came into office, that was when there was this controversy about 3 years, 4 years secondary education. That was when the issue came out that we needed to expand the facilities in the schools because we had asked the children to stay for 1 more year. Now I have records, and I will challenge anybody. I mean, it's public knowledge that we waited to the last moment and then applied to Public Procurement Authority for sole sourcing to be able to give out contracts for even supply of bank beds, furniture, bank beds, construction of schools, etc. The records are there. And unfortunately, you had the Procurement Authority granting approval for multiple sole sourcing. That was the first time I was even hearing about multiple sole sourcing. That we've granted you the leeway to identify people and give contracts to them for them to carry out these contracts. Unfortunately, lo and behold, most of the contracts were not even carried out. Government had to spend more money. I'm talking about Ministry of Education. Government had to spend more money to get these jobs done. So if you know,
just a readiness to admit.
Just readiness to admit and to, for the students to be able to carry on with their studies. And as I said, the records are there. We have also given an example of all these PPP. Now, are we following the guidelines about sole sourcing? Or do we wait to the last moment and then write to the Public Procurement Authority and say that because of time, the only way we can meet our deadline is for you to allow us to pick an individual?
But is that not the rationale for the sole sourcing that's embedded in the Public Procurement Act?
No.
It's too late in the day.
No, not
I can't go through all the processes of tender and open tender and all that.
Yes,
as a result of that sole sourcing?
One, if there's emergency.
God, this is an emergency time. No. There's no time.
No, it's not emergency. If you create the emergency, then you have not...
Are you saying that this is deliberately created?
Yeah, of course. Let me give you
That's a strong accusation.
Yes. Let me give you another example. Parliament invited local producers of furniture, went through a certain kind of bidding. At the last moment said that the time was too short.
Based on whose discretion?
The board of Parliament. And wrote to Procurement Authority. Procurement Authority granted them approval.
But is it not true? You were on recess and quickly you needed to come back.
For how long have we known that this Parliament needs to be expanded? For how long? Since 2009, and then even 2013, beginning of 2013, this matter came up. So how could we have waited to the last moment and said that we should go to China and go and spend $7 million, and then the Public Procurement Authority will grant approval for sole sourcing? These are the issues that we should address. Otherwise, you will never have value for money, because the authority has been put there more or less as a check on how we run some of these things. If you constrict, if you create the environment and the situation where the only option that you bring up is that I need to identify one person to give him the contract because time is so short, you are just defeating the purpose of the whole thing.
Thank you very much. For me, I'm a member of the Public Accounts Committee. And
is he a member?
No, he's not. If what is quoted here is what is coming from my chairman, for me, I think my chairman went too far. You see, when communicating to the public, we need to communicate the facts.
Just wait there. Yeah. The Public Accounts Committee's chairman, and we know that is Kwekwaji Maimenu. Okay, he has asked government to stop the practice of sole sourcing in awarding contracts for national projects. Yes. I think that his rationale is it shouldn't be a practice. It says practice.
It should be the exception.
You see,
it's a practice, and we know what practice is, and what a decision is. What a decision is.
You know, we have laws, and the laws are made to make administration very easy. This sole sourcing didn't start today. I've also been on committees, Education Select Committee. I was in my first term in office, I was a member of the Education Select Committee. And I can
this is
tell
your second term?
Yes, I can
and your
tell
first term was when? The Atani administration?
Yeah, after when we took over from the MPP. And I can tell you, in 2008, contracts, the school projects that were awarded in the second round, all over the country.
I don't know if you said second round is what?
That is during this, you know, we ran the election.
Oh, you mean after the first round of the 2018?
Yeah, the second round.
The presidential election.
Exactly. And these contracts were awarded to party members.
Perceived party members.
Well, that is what
just like the way the MPP raised
exactly.
it. Perceived
so you
party
see,
members.
Sometimes we shouldn't. I've always said that. Look, let's confront the issues in the bipartisan manner, so that we find a way of solving the problems that will inure to the benefit of every citizen. We see a defect in the law that has been done. It is
There's
a
no
defect. No. We are
the law stipulates.
Yeah, that we can do sole sourcing
based on certain criteria. Exactly. There's no time, emergencies, etc.
Exactly. And those things are being followed. Okay.
They are being followed.
Yes, those things are being followed. Because before you can be given approval, there should be an element of the criteria that we've mentioned. Okay? If you are able to satisfy that criteria, you'll be granted the permission. I'm on several procurement boards, and I know what goes. Exactly.
I'll borrow a contribution from Justice Jampe from his sittings. He says that we have technical language in law, but you need technical knowledge to interpret the law. Whereas the law allows you to undertake a certain process through a certain practice, which we all know is subject to abuse, based on what the practice should be, and that based on the decisions also will be taken. Is that not flagrant abuse of the law?
That is why...
Deliberately created, just like he's saying?
No.
No?
Look,
okay.
What I'm saying is that we are practicing this procurement, we are using it. And we've seen that as a result of the granting of the sole sourcing, it is being used. And people think that the sole sourcing is a problem. Okay?
No. People think that it's been abused.
Exactly. And that is the problem.
But what's wrong in people complaining that sole sourcing is being abused?
You wait.
If you abuse it, people will complain.
In your term in office,
in this country when the office of the president issued a statement that any procurement above 5 million should pass? What happened to that policy?
It's still in effect.
It's still in effect. But you see, these are things that institutions, if you go to the Ministry of Education, they have their tender committees. if you go to almost all the institutions have their tender committees from the lower to the national, the ministerial level. Now, when it comes to sole sourcing, there are rules and regulations. Provided you meet the criteria, you have not abused the system. Okay? Now, as a country, if we feel that the sole sourcing is creating a problem for us, we should look for ways of amending it to curtail.
How?
Exactly. Those are the things that we need to bring to the fore.
How? I'm asking you.
You see,
you're saying we need a bipartisan approach, and you're saying that as a country, if we feel that we have a difficulty with the use of the sole sourcing as embedded in the law,
we can propose other amendments.
How?
No, those are the things I expect people from the other side who thinks it is being abused to bring up.
Now, let me say,
because look, once this thing is not changed,
But
you cannot.
Why would you
wait.
for any moment
please,
if you want to defend this?
No, please.
Why?
No. You see, we shouldn't create the impression that because somebody is using sole sourcing for something, it means corrupt practices are going on, which is totally wrong. We shouldn't do that. If you feel that the sole sourcing is a real challenge for us as a country, let's propose an amendment, because as we see now, the procurement this thing is, I think, in the House for certain amendments to be done. So that
we can include this.
Exactly. So that at the end of the day, it is the entire country that is going to benefit from it. But if we come out only to criticize, without bringing up any solution to the problem.
I hope you're not saying that criticism is bad.
No, but the most, when you criticize,
just like you made your point.
When you criticize, you need to offer
you've made your point. Now,
a solution.
I have to live with, as you make your contribution, do you think that we can have two sides to the coin? One, and say the law as it is, in which it stipulates that sole sourcing should be used, should stay, or we need the amendments. Now, if we add the argument, well, creating the room for sole sourcing to be used based on emergencies and time is not a bad thing at all. The point is the actions of the individuals involved and the entities involved that tend to create the processes for abuse. So what do we use in checking some of these abuses?
Well, in the first place, we should not create the impression that we are comparing regimes.
You feel that's what he wants to do?
That's what he wants to do.
Well, he said that it's always been used.
You created the impression.
You said I should.
He kept quiet and then...
No, but he created...
You're heckling
from the onset.
You're heckling him. It's not fair.
Professor Mills, in his first State of the Nation address, raised this issue. He had legitimate means to raise it. Because when it comes to sole sourcing, the state loses money. It's not just for the fun of it that we said there should be competitive bidding.
Is it not sometimes? It's not always. You can't say that because it's sole sourced.
No.
It's a process that has always led to the state losing money.
If any entity had its own way, all things being equal, you want to get the best offers from those who say that they can provide goods or services. You want to get the best offers. If one person comes to you and say that I can offer you this, what are you comparing with? That's what I'm saying, that we should not create the impression that you just say that this era did this, so if this era is doing it, why are you complaining? That should not be the issue. The issue is that institution called Public Procurement Authority, are they running that institution very well? Who are the persons running the institution? Are they running it very well? Are laws working? Are we finding loopholes in those laws? Are we abusing the system? And there are facts and figures to show. That's how come that the government itself was concerned to the extent of bringing out a policy that beyond a certain figure, beyond a certain threshold, the presidency should be involved. And I'm saying that, so was the presidency involved in Parliament importing...
You're saying under normal circumstances?
That's what the presidency said.
Okay.
That's what the presidency said. And some of us have even had a problem with politicians running that institution.
You mean the procurement?
Procurement authority. Some of us have had a problem with politicians running that authority.
But some politicians who are alongside in your party do not find any problem with it.
No, so all of us in one party should think the same way. What I'm saying is that if you set up such an institution, which is supposed to be more or less be the arbiter, the watchdog for the nation, you don't go and put politicians there.
Okay.
As we speak, who is the board chairman? Is he not from the office of the president, Steve Obimpe?
Okay.
Who's the chief executive officer?
Now, Theophilus is saying...
Go and read their annual reports. There are so many things wrong in how they run the place. And we should be bold to say it. I'm not interested in saying that because it's happening under one regime, we should not be able to talk about it. We can talk about all the regimes. How have you run the place? Have you had value for money? Has it been the best way to run the system? Because the state is the biggest buyer. The state is the biggest buyer. If Gridco wants to procure, and then Gridco manages the situation to the extent that they would have to be forced to just pick one supplier. Have we had the best? Time. Oh, have we had the best? If you knew 2 years ago you should procure, and you come and say that the system is so bureaucratic, it's so frustrating. I've heard some top officers saying that.
But do you agree then, following these concerns that you have, then it means that these are weaknesses in the law?
Certainly. And I'm saying that even...
How do we cure that weakness?
Even that simple procedure that submit annual reports, it's not done. That simple procedure that 3 months after the end of the year, you should submit an annual report through the Ministry of Finance. Go and look at the backlog. We still haven't even been able to do that. That is why if the Public Accounts Committee has gone through what has been submitted, they go through all procurements. And if they have come to identify the major issue as using the sole sourcing system to abuse procurement, they have every right to complain about it. Okay. And I'm saying that there are facts and figures to show.
How do we cure this?
How do you cure this? One, appoint competent, efficient, technical people to run the institution.
Non-political.
Non-political. Two, we look at the law again and see how we can tighten the law to make sure that the state will get value for money.
But in going forward, it means that once the procurement authority's report is always late backdated, it means we still have a lot more to look at. And these weaknesses could even run into the next political year.
Yes.
And whilst we haven't looked at the previous year, something untoward is happening in the current year. Okay. How do we resolve some of these difficulties?
The PPP is also another issue that we should look at.
Yeah, but we have agreed that worldwide PPP is being used now to promote infrastructural development. Yes. So it's something that has come to stay.
Yes.
And it's being looked at to amend.
But it should not abuse the PPP. One,
good.
The government promised that there will be a whole law on PPP. Still, we haven't had it.
It's been looked at. Last time I interacted with Rashid Purple, and that's what he said.
Nothing has come to Parliament.
Have patience.
After how many
years?
Sure
it will come.
Two, if you look at what has happened to us, if we are the JIDA front, then we should look at our PPP again very well. That you claim that you are the service provider. You are the only one who can teach people how to ride motorbikes. You become a service provider. You go and look for your own money.
So you're saying that we should open tender, best prices,
course,
competitive bidding?
Yes, for some of these
makes a lot of sense, yes. I believe. Well, it makes a lot of sense. Even if these are weaknesses in the law, it still makes a lot of sense to make room.
That is why we are all here, to make sure that we have good laws that will save the people of this country. And for me, in terms of the, how do you call it, the procurement entity committees and so on and so forth, it is not about the political leadership. Look, people on the committee are people who have gone through procurement practice. If you have the political head, does not make the whole thing political.
But then he's not neutral.
No, decisions are taken by the board.
Okay, let me ask you, how neutral would you be in taking a decision which involves a government institution and on a project which will benefit your government in the long run, which if you look at the time of implementation could result in your government getting a bad public opinion because it's not being implemented quickly? How neutral would you be in such a hypothetical situation?
Look, then from the entity level, we need to disband the whole
That's
process.
not the point. What he's raising is that we need non-political actors
that
there.
is not
not
the
necessarily
issue.
those who are not competent.
No,
He's not saying that he's a
Let's
lawyer,
talk
but he's a
about
politician.
competence.
He's saying that if it is an institution for which he will be appointed to and would not be neutral, he shouldn't be appointed into. Is that not what you're saying?
You know what? Let us always talk about competence. That is it. Because look, all of us sitting here, no matter what you do, when it comes to elections, you go to vote. You vote for a political party.
But your vote is secret.
Exactly.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Your vote
So there's some politics in you. Listen, there's some politics in you.
What is competence?
The most important thing is you should have somebody who has integrity, somebody who is fair, somebody who is dedicated, somebody who is honest,
subjective.
and then somebody who is competent.
That's subjective.
Exactly. Those are the things you need.
And you can't guarantee that always. That very
those
person,
are the things. That is why the president has the power.
You can't guarantee that very person you are saying has integrity, has what is transparent, is non blah 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 blah.
Then we should as well go for angels.
Would always be carrying these virtues with him or her.
Then we should go for angels.
When he's an actor in that very situation, that's the whole point. Obiamo is raising.
Then we should go for angels to run our system.
That's not a fair comment to the public, especially when you make that.
It is about competence. It is about competence.
When you're not politically neutral.
Please.
In a very compromised situation.
Look, today.
You should add performance.
Today.
If you are competent after 5 years, you have not delivered.
Today in Parliament.
Where is your competence?
In Parliament. Members of Parliament that you see. There are people who have worked in civil service.
That's not the point we're
saying.
They've
been top managers. They had their political affiliations. Don't they? But so the issue is about competence. The person who has you put in charge, is he competent enough to handle the issues?
Has he delivered?
Those are the things we want to look for.
After 5 years, has he delivered?
Person belongs to this party, belongs to when we do that.
Okay. So for example, take it from this angle. So could it be possible that your government has appointed perhaps the incompetent politicians to go Monday and left the competent people out?
No.
But that's what you're saying.
No. I have never sat here to say that.
Okay. Perhaps I'm interpreting.
Then it's a wrong interpretation.
All right.
Because the committee has not embezzled any money. They've not involved themselves in any corrupt practices. So please don't go there.
You and I know that the committee is not involved in handling money, but they are involved in taking decisions that have binding effects on contracts that involve huge money.
Financial implications.
Exactly.
And that is why we're here arguing on this very subject.
Exactly.
Now, are you saying that if we say, well, we want to digress from the opinion that Obiamo has, that we need to appoint politically neutral people into the Public Procurement Authority, but still hold the view that we'll still want to appoint all these politically tagged people, but competent people, then the people currently there or have been appointed there, for which we're getting all these inexigencies, are not competent?
No. Please, you see.
All right. Why need the argument? We have to go on to the black side. I have 5 minutes, and I think that
in this country, we've done a lot of procurements in this country. Okay, you can't just use one procurement issue.
It's not one procurement.
It's an array.
You're talking about annual reports.
Which of them?
You're talking about annual reports.
Which of them? No, the public is listening. Which of them?
Which of what?
You are a member.
You don't just generalize everything.
Which
and
of what?
Then say they are not doing the right thing. No.
Why did they have to take the presidency to complain about procurement? Why did they have to take the presidency? If everything was okay.
No.
Why did they have to take the presidency?
No. Look, procurement involves a lot of financial implications. Okay. Some of the financial implications will have a toll on government expenditure. Okay. Government needs to look at whatever is happening, so that at least we can manage how our resources are spent. If you go to GRA and they are doing procurement, and let's say an amount of, 9 million Ghana cedis or 100 million Ghana cedis is going to be involved, government has the right to know exactly what the resources are going to be used for. And it takes a prudent leader, somebody who wants to make sure that the resources of this country
to complain
are handled
about it
properly, to streamline how things are done. So if the president has done that, we need to rather commend him for ensuring that our resources should be used in a very, because the institution
now you're arguing for and against, so we don't know.
There are pros
you are
and
holding
cons.
2 views.
There
all
are
right.
pros and cons. So we need to.
That's your last comment on this. Then we need to resolve this. How do we get a bipartisan approach to this? Your last comment on the subject. We'll move on to the black stars.
I thought even the comment from the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee was a bipartisan approach. We should look at the way we do our procurement, and Ghana will be saved. And if anybody has the interest of Ghana at heart, you should go along with such a recommendation or such submissions, because at the end of the day, as I said, the government is the biggest spender, and then everybody wants to go to government for largesse, for contrast. But we should ensure that as much as possible, we have applied the rules and regulations that will make procurement very competitive in this country.
Okay. We're getting some news. I have to change the subject, and I have only 3 minutes before we wrap up. The Black Stars appearance fees were being told will be slashed to $5,000 per game. I'm sure it's all follow-up from all the umpires we had in Brazil and the questions you raised. Not only you, I'm talking about...
we should just distinguish between World Cup and the African Cup of Nations. For AFCON, there's literally not much to earn when you either host it.
Then we should even be given $2,000.
If they think that is what the players deserve. For World Cup, the reason why the players have had that clout to even demand a certain amount is the fact that once they appear at the World Cup, they earn.
The prize monies are huge.
Yes, the prize monies are huge. And if you get to the finals or win, you're talking about $45–50 million. So, once they go into that competition, they also want to get just a slice of it. That is different from AFCON, where you could go in, even the sponsorship is nothing to write home about. You spend more sending your team there than even getting anything out of it. So if the ministry thinks that the best way to go about it is to say that we can only give you this much, win the whole tournament, and you are guaranteed this amount, it's for the ministry and the other stakeholders to sit down and see how best they can process.
But $5,000, what do you make of it?
Well, for
the proposed, yes, that's as bonus, as appearance fee for each match. Or
very much.
Well, it depends on how they want to manage it, because usually it goes up as you also move up. You play the prelims, you qualify for quarterfinals, and there's a certain amount. You go to semifinals, a certain amount. But if you want to make it flat, sometimes they think that they are shortchanged, because then no matter the effort you put in, until you bring a trophy, you don't earn that much. But formally, you used to be graduated. You get to finals, this is what you earn. If you're able to win the tournament, this
but the last winners of the tournament, I think, got only close to $2 million or so. It's not much.
Which last winners?
No, the last winners were Nigeria.
Yeah. And you're talking about Nigeria. You're talking about Ghana, not.
I know. I mean, the winners got only $2 million. So if the players want, I mean, from CAF.
No, yeah. As for CAF, as I said, when it comes to AFCON, there's not much to earn from AFCON. So
okay.
What is the difference?
Chefla, slashing the money to 5,000. What do you make of it?
For me, it is normal, because this is not the World Cup.
You don't like football, do you?
I like football. I was a very good footballer.
At primary school?
Yeah.
Primary school, everybody was a good footballer.
Secondary school. You were tied to your books.
Goalkeeper in primary school, you're a good footballer.
Primary school was not competitive.
They used to call him Teacher Chai.
Yeah, and I was a good footballer, you know. Yeah. For $5,000, it's normal for African Cup of Nations. This is not something to demotivate the players, no. We are looking at the prize money, what is within that particular tournament that is being played. And this is not the first time the Stars are going into African Cup of Nations. They know what it entails. But you know, people are saying it has been slashed because we are comparing this with what they took at the World Cup level. So they think, but this is an African Cup of Nations.
No,
but even previously, they were taking same rate, 10,000, 10,000. Right?
No, the difference is where they are proposing a flat rate throughout the tournament.
You think that will not be fair to the players?
No.
All right.
No, but it is.
This is the first time that they're bringing this up. I think some of the players will resist it.
You've never played professional football before, so you say 5,000 old primary school football. All right, Theophilus is the Chairman of Parliament for Ablikuma Central, and thanks for joining me, Theo.
Yeah,
and Obi, Osebun is a member of Parliament for Equiapim South, raising some controversial issues this morning. But I mean, they're very salient. So please join the team. Yeah. We'll be in Kumasi, giving you the best update from the NDC National executive elections.
They should
Is
make
it going
sure.
to take place? It's not today that we're getting the ruling.
Yes, it's today we're getting the ruling.
But
And
you
they
are
should also
positive.
make sure that
You are in the judge's mind.
They should make sure they declare the results after they have had elections. As we speak,
I think we'll move beyond
as
this.
it be deputy national organizer, we still don't know who the person is. Results have not been declared.
Okay, that's it for the discussion on AM Talk. We're
who is
taking
your
a break.
deputy
Always make sure you
organizer?
get interactive on Facebook. Join us on TV. We have a handle on Twitter as well. I Join Us on TV and a channel on YouTube, My Joy Online.